Welcome to my channel. The topic of today's video is coffee and cigarettes in recovery. If you've been in any 12-step program or program of recovery, you have probably noticed that there's a high amount of people who smoke or use nicotine, and quite a few coffee drinkers. In fact, the majority of people drink coffee. Today's topic is going to be talking about the two of those things, but more specifically around the nicotine side. And to do that, I'm going to read from AA's big book and just shed a little bit of light where this culture of smoking cigarettes and coffee may have come from. So I'm going to read a couple paragraphs from page 135 of the big book under the chapter, The Family Afterward. Here is a case in point. One of our friends is a heavy smoker and coffee drinker. There was no doubt he overindulged. Seeing this and meaning to be helpful, his wife commenced to admonish him about it. He admitted he was overdoing these things, but frankly said he was not ready to stop. His wife is one of those persons who really feels there is something rather sinful about these commodities. So she nagged, and her intolerance finally threw him into a fit of anger. He got drunk. Of course, our friend was wrong, dead wrong. He had to painfully admit and mend his spiritual offenses. Though he is now a most effective member of Alcoholics Anonymous, he still smokes and drinks coffee. But neither his wife nor anyone else stands in judgment. She sees she was wrong to make a burning issue out of such a matter when his more serious ailments were being rapidly cured. So there's a lot of material here. From what I can tell, that this may be an origin to that culture of smoking and drinking. Now we can see in this point that yes, he admitted that he was overdoing these things. And I think what's happened is that the intention of this, and at the time that this big book was written in 1939, the fellowship was fairly new. And yes, when you are going through sobriety and early sobriety, I mean, you're going to latch on to other things, whether it's sugar, whether it's coffee, whether it's nicotine. That there's a number of things we can latch on to in the short term that, you know, at the moment, the alcohol is more the pressing issue. Or if you were into drugs, the hard drugs are more the pressing issue than the alcohol. So the essence of the story is to deal with the most pressing issues first, the things that are causing the most damage first. So I understand that. But I do want to mention a couple things. When the big book was written in 1939, they did not have a clear connection between smoking and cancer, emphysema, and other major health issues that smoking caused. So they didn't know that at the time. Secondly, they didn't know about, this was a new fellowship and a new book. So they didn't realize that, yeah, people are going to be staying sober 30, 40 years, and eventually that nicotine is going to be the thing that takes them out, not the alcohol. Because they had no way of knowing what this fellowship would turn into. So looking forward in the future, they didn't realize how bad nicotine was. Now, I would argue, like, coffee does have negative side effects. It does cause stress. It does impact heart rate and sleep. But it doesn't have the major detrimental issues that smoking has. The other thing with caffeine is that the consumption has gone up over time. So in 1939, a cup of coffee was the size of a teacup. It was a 6-ounce cup. It was not people grabbing these big, extra large coffees, these 24-ounce, these 16-ounce cups, and slogging back coffee in meetings at 8 o'clock at night. So that our consumption of caffeine has gone up over time. I've done another video about how the vessel size has increased. Now, again, the message here is a message of hope, and that you can get sober from alcohol. So when you're trying to get sober and you're in early recovery of any substance, getting free from that substance is the most important thing. So if you're trying to get free from nicotine, you might be able to, you can give yourself some license to indulge in sugar for a short period of time, let's say. Ideally, we're not reaching for substitutes, but we're trying to deal with the problematic issue at hand. So I think that the message in the big book was around early recovery, and from the lens that they didn't realize the detrimental effects of nicotine and overdoing the caffeine as well. So I think in that short term, yeah, don't make a burning issue when there's more pressing problems at hand. But I think the problem is when this gets turned into a long-term issue. Someone's got multiple years of sobriety, and I mean, that's fantastic. And that's really something to celebrate. But how long can we continue to smoke? How long can we continue to drink excessive coffee where it's keeping us awake at night, impacting our sleep, raising our blood pressure? How long can we justify doing those behaviors? And I feel that when people say, whether they're consciously or unconsciously referring back to this part of the big book, when they say, don't worry about the coffee, don't worry about the smoking right now, just deal with the drinking, just deal with the drugs. That there's truth in that for early recovery, and that is a valid point, because yeah, you might need to hold on to that cigarette to get free from hard drugs for the short term. But long term, when people say don't worry about that, don't worry about it, just focus on the alcohol, focus on the drugs, there is a point in time when we should be demanding more of life, and those voices can turn into enabling voices. So that's all I've got on this topic, and keep watching for more videos.